topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to Entrepreneurs Ascending. This isn't just a podcast. This is a call to action for all entrepreneurs who are tired of seeing their businesses and communities suffer while big business continues to grow by the billions. We challenge you to apply the content of our time together to create businesses that your clients can't resist, your employees love to work for, and your communities can depend on. Now is the time for Entrepreneurs Ascending. Hello, welcome back to Entrepreneurs Ascending and back with Dr. Flory. How are you doing today, Dr. Flory?
I'm doing great. Beautiful morning.
Awesome. Yeah, and that's a beautiful. Is that a cello behind you?
It's a 3/4 bass, which
bass. Right.
in circles of bluegrass or blues, they traditionally use a 3/4 bass. The full size basses, which are fairly similar in size, maybe just a little wider. Those are typically the ones you see in orchestral music.
Beautiful. Yeah. I'm sure that you probably play that much better. I'm working on the guitar. I downloaded an app. I'm looking at learning. So once I'm a little bit better, maybe we can. Although I guess I have to learn some bluegrass songs. Is that what you're saying? So that we can jam?
I play all kinds of stuff. So you come with the tunes, and I'll fill in the rest.
Awesome. Well, today we weren't just going to talk about the musical instruments in the background. Today we were going to talk about you as an entrepreneur. So much is riding on you. So many people are depending on you, and so really we have to think more proactively. And one of those areas is definitely our health, and it's so easy as entrepreneurs living fast-paced, stressful lives to just get into some bad habits. And it's hard to weed through all the information that's out there. So in our first part, we wanted to talk about how to be more proactive with your health. I know that there's the pandemic, and so a lot of questions are on people's minds about what they can do to try to keep their immune systems up, regardless of whether or not you have the vaccine or don't have the vaccine. It's still a good idea to keep your immune system strong and your body strong. So we're going to talk about that, and then for the second half, we're going to talk about how to keep your energy levels up. So there's the health aspect, keeping your health, and that bleeds into the energy and whatnot, but we're going to focus specifically on keeping that energy up all day long so you can bring your A game. So we're going to pivot right into this now. And then Dr. Flory, I just wanted to mention that he is one of our sponsors. He is with the functional health team, and they focus on really figuring out what the root causes are for our health issues. And he's really helped me in a lot of ways. So hopefully you'll take some of this knowledge and apply it, and he can help you as well. So thanks again for being here, Dr. Flory.
Thank you for having me. I enjoy these. So the one we've done so far is going to fall out fun.
Absolutely. So when we're talking about proactive health, for most people, what do you say is the first step they need to take to start leveling up their health game, if you will?
Yes, sleep. Right.
One word. And you're talking to a bunch of entrepreneurs. How do you expect them to get the proper amount of sleep?
That's why I put it number one, Matt Barbey.
Fair enough, Matthew Flory, Dr. Matthew Flory.
And that is easy to say because there are, there certainly are demands, right? The demands on us might influence and affect that. Our stress levels, right? Which so many factors affect that then too. So we have to bring that in, especially again, like you say, when we're looking from a cause-based medicine perspective, which is the model that I developed specifically cause-based medicine. A lot of people talk about root cause and things like that, but cause-based medicine is actually a very specific, almost algorithmic way of going about that. But again, So, with sleep, we've got stress levels and so many things influencing that. We've got diet, right? That can influence sleep. But it very really truly is, when I say sleep, from my perspective, what I mean is, yes, not only the act, the amount of time, the environment for sleeping, the quality of sleep, but it's really about the whole circadian rhythm, right? Because this has to do more, from my perspective, when I hear sleep, of hormone cycles. Okay. And so, now we get into, all right, well, what's affecting our fight or flight response? Okay. And whether or not that's serving us very well or not.
Okay. So, first of all, you were saying circadian rhythms.
Yeah.
A lot of people might have heard what that is, but what are circadian rhythms, just to kind of clarify that?
Yeah. It's a normalized cycle, a daily 24-hour rhythm cycle that has to do with light and dark periods of time, how those influence our hormones, and then how, on the other end of that, how it influences our biochemical and physiologic patterns, right? So our circadian rhythms very much guide our health and wellness to a large degree.
Okay. So it's kind of guiding like our sleep patterns and maybe even our energy levels, as we'll probably hit in part two. But yeah,
fair to say. But then I should add that some of these same hormones have influences on our immune system, right? Which is kind of the other part. The other part of our conversation, and so it's very important for that also.
Yeah. Okay. Now with circadian rhythms, I've heard people saying that like you can kind of like reboot them if they're kind of off, or like, but I've also heard other people say that some people are just naturally like more likely to be a night person or a night owl. And I saw a good point that somebody brought up that civilizations, tribes, living out there and potentially threats out there in the darkness, that it was good for some folks to be kind of more the night owls, the ones telling the stories by the fire. So is that kind of a thing where maybe some people are just kind of built a little bit differently with their circadian rhythms than others?
We make up all kinds of stories to tell ourselves to support our confirmation biases, right?
All right.
So I think that might be a little bit, the normalcy of that might be a bit from my perspective, is a bit overblown. A lot of times when people say, oh, but that's the way I've been since I can remember. Well, yeah, but unfortunately, we find a lot of people that have had certain undiagnosed infections, imbalances within their microbiome, which change levels of neurotransmitters and hormones, since they can remember. And so, of course, their personal experience is going to reflect that sort of a thing. Now, whether or not that is the most healthy way for their body to function, that's another story, right?
All right. So there's more to the story.
It's kind of like this, right? People will often, but one of the most common excuses, I'll put it that way, that I hear is, "Oh, I'm getting older," right? Well, okay, fine, but what's the difference then between a 75, 80-year-old that is still able to play, tennis weekly, run 5 miles and whatnot, and one that's already in in an assisted living facility, right? What's the difference there? And what people don't take into account with aging is that we age faster the more inflammation we have. And if somebody let's say that the healthier, right, 75, 80-year-old has paid more attention to their diet. They've actually intentionally detoxified, and supported removal of wastes that might, for other medical reasons, not be detoxing and being removed from their body very well. There are actual differences there, right? And so just labeling something as, aging, or that's the way I am, I don't, I'm a night owl. I have a little bit of contention with those, reasons.
All right. Well, so maybe it kind of comes down to what you choose, I guess. If you like being a night owl and it works for you, then great. But if it doesn't, there might be hope. You don't have to just accept it, I guess we could say. Is that
I can speak to that from personal experience, right?
okay?
A little over a decade ago, I was really very sick, right? And I was the consummate night owl, right?
Yeah.
Whereas as I got under control by chronic inflammation that was due to some infections that had gone systemic from gut problems and microbiome problems and actual infection of the GI tract, I naturally started to shift right into what you would consider maybe a more normal sleep pattern. And I can 100% tell you that I feel it in terms of positive ways these days when now it feels normal. It feels good to go to bed maybe 10 o'clock and get up at 6 o'clock, something like that.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. All right, so we got sleep, and so there's the aspect that if your sleep patterns are off, or your circadian rhythms are off, then there might be some things that you might need to look into, potentially some infections or some other health issues that you might want to try to figure out. Okay, now when you say these infections, are these infections that that normally come up in scans, or I mean, like blood tests with the doctor, or is it something that, like, to really figure these systemic infections out, like, do you have to do something else to find them?
Surprisingly, they do not normally come up on
Wow.
your average blood work. Now, some of the imprints, the shadows of them, right? So
Hmm.
somebody who's trained to look at very specific patterns of the white blood cells and immune system in like what a CBC or complete blood count. I can see the remnants, of that, but they're not testing for these infections specifically, and you will not they will not be discovered on just general average blood work. One of the
Oh.
reasons I think it's important to mention as to why is that well, let me ask you this. So when you go in and you get your blood work done, okay, they're going to compare you to what? What do they compare your number to on that?
I'm guessing averages, basically.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there's an average range. Now, who on average goes to get their blood work done? Is it all the healthy people? Is
Right.
it
Right. Well, I mean, that's
everybody?
fair.
Or is it people who have frequently some concerns? What's more frequent, do you think?
Well, I guess probably more frequently concerns.
Yeah. And
Of
so
course,
these
and
these
again,
averages, these ranges are literally created by the sick people. Okay. And so you're not alerted that you're outside these ranges, that you're breaching these points until you're as sick or sicker than the sickos. Is one
yeah.
way I like to say it. So what we do and what I do, and many other people that are trained like me, is we have two ranges. We have this general range that everybody looks at, which I call a pathologic range, because it does mean that there's pathology that
Mm.
is either formed or forming or you're at risk for, right?
Hmm.
But then there's optimal ranges, and this is not something that any of your general allopathic, right, or symptom-based treatment medical team will ever be looking at, really.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Wow. So I guess to keep the immune system strong, it's not as simple as just eating healthy. You need to actually, uh, I guess, look at are there some other indicators, like, because we talked about sleep, and I know we're kind of going down a path. I mean, we talked a little bit about some things this morning and yesterday, and prepping for everything, and just kind of getting on the same page. But we're kind of going down a little bit different. But stress can so not stress. Well, stress can be a part of it, but circadian rhythms can be a sign of some issues. What are some other signs of some of these things that might be affecting our immune system and weakening it, that we might need to, that that we're not even aware of, that and might not show up? medically?
Yeah, there are some things to mention that I think were uh, taught to somewhat overlook, right? Um,
Okay.
our attention span, our ability to focus,
Hmm. Hmm.
things such as fatigue, right? Or even energy at the wrong times of day. Having more energy at night is a indicator that there's some adrenal issues, right?
Hmm.
And when we say adrenal, well, that's our stress recovery system. Okay, so we're talking about our ability to recover. Um, Increased cortisol will have a antagonistic effect, so it'll counteract things like our ability to manage our blood glucose, or it'll counteract our immune system function, right? So it's not just I don't know, it's not even a distant relationship. It's a fairly primary relationship where things like our stress levels and our metabolism, right, where these things influence something like our immune system.
Wow. Okay. Well, so we talked a little bit about how to maybe identify that maybe there's something wrong that's affecting your immune system. Maybe there's some sort of hidden infection that might not come up in the typical blood work or typical labs. But what are some other things that people should be doing? Sleep, you said, is the first thing. Figuring out how to get a good sleep cycle. What else? I mean, I know nutrition is important, but I don't know if really people really know what nutrition is. It's like, okay, well, you got the food pyramid that says like so many fruits and vegetables, but I think that's probably about what people think about in terms of nutrition.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. So nutrition, it is. Well, let's say this, right? Food is medicine. Okay,
Okay.
food is our primary source for collecting the vitamins, minerals, and other compounds, other nutrients our body needs to survive and to thrive.
That's how we
Amino
rebuild our
acids.
cells, right? Like that. If we don't have the proper supplies, it's kind of like somebody building a house. If you're not given proper supplies, the Three Little Pigs. I guess maybe that's a good example, right? Like,
Exactly. This is an entrepreneurial business. Entrepreneurs Ascending podcast. I describe it to people like, hey, if we're a paper factory and we're meant to produce paper, well, we've got to have trees, right?
right,
We've got to have the
right,
raw materials. We also have to have the workers to work in the factory, right?
yeah,
We
yeah,
might have, two shifts. We might, if we need more paper, we might have to, go to a third shift in there, right?
hmm
So all of these things we can, use analogous to different aspects of our body. But so yeah, we have to collect our amino acids because our cells are literally like they are the skeleton of our cells are protein structures, right? These amino acids go in and they create that. Our cellular replication is driven by the DNA. Those are based within some of the amino acids, nucleic acids, to be specific. Our fats, our healthy fatty acids that we get from our diet, those are extremely important. The low fat foods and the low fat craze back a couple decades ago was probably one of the most detrimental things to our overall health, and we saw a huge growth of autoimmune conditions within this time, right?
wow, yeah,
Because our cell membrane, literally the house, right, the shell that our cells and all live and operate in, that makes them. That's it's extremely important for the healthy construction of that. So
So fats
yes.
are helpful actually for the construction of the cell membranes. Is that what you're
Well,
saying?
yeah, and if that isn't constructed right, then it looks like something foreign to our immune system, and our immune system starts attacking it because it's
No
not
kidding.
self. And right there we have
Wow.
autoimmunity, right?
Interesting. So some of these autoimmune conditions can be kind of caused because your body doesn't recognize itself when it doesn't have the right resources to build cells and everything properly.
Absolutely. I deal in
Wow.
chronic inflammation. And one of the probably the most common chronic inflammatory autoimmune condition I see is what I would call a systemic, right? Or a diffuse kind of ramping up, or the immune system, uh, quote unquote, this isn't the perfect word, but I'm just going to use it, attacking, right?
Yeah.
Multiple cellular systems of the body, right?
Wow.
And blocking things like our insulin function, our thyroid hormone function, right?
Wow.
These signaling hormones, because the cell membranes themselves are not healthy. And so then we get something like Hashimoto's, which is which is hypothyroidism that is caused by the immune system. There's also, a smaller subsection of thyroid issues where the thyroid levels are ramped up, but there's some similar reasons basing that. Another one is diabetes, right? And its precursor condition, which is insulin resistance, that we could identify 10, 15, 20 years before actual diabetes starts. And again, this is frequently, very frequently, I'd say more than half of the time, it is the immune system getting involved, kind of sticking its nose where it probably shouldn't, but it's just kind of confused. It's not that it's not working. There's not something dysfunctional about the immune system itself. It's actually working. It's just kind of working overtime. And it's been us and our environment, including maybe our diet and nutrition, poor detoxification, these infections, things like that, that have made it kind of confused and made it work overtime.
Wow. Well, I know that one of the things that's kind of itching on the back of people's minds, and we're getting kind of close to halftime, but obviously we're in the midst of the pandemic. We've been there for a while, and so people have questions about, like, okay, so regardless of whether or not you have the vaccine, people can still experience symptoms, and people still want to probably be kind of proactive. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of good information about how to be proactive. So, what are some ways to be proactive to, I guess before you were to get symptoms, but then also, like, if you were to get symptoms, like, is there anything that you
Sure.
can do to protect yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is a very good topic to discuss because, as we know, these vaccines were originally created for other forms, right, of this of the virus.
Yeah.
And while there's seemingly some effectiveness that's still conveyed there, we know that both vaccinated and unvaccinated can have a viral load that can spread. So
Hmm.
when we're talking about the kind of preemptive or early type of conversation, something that often comes up is the conversation of vitamin D. And I think that people would be best served if they really understood what role vitamin D can play. It can be incredibly effective. In fact, the most recent kind of studies out on that show that which, by the way, you can get your vitamin D levels tested for about $30 or $40. You don't have to have even necessarily your doctor's a prescription for it, right? Can easily guide people towards that if that's something they want to do. But in the U.S. anyway, which I know I've got a number of people I work with out of throughout North America, but in the U.S. anyway, that level, as it's reported, at a level of 50, that's shown to be quite protective. Okay,
Oh,
and that's why they
okay.
talk about vitamin D being an effective component here. But what we do need to understand is that taking vitamin D when you think you're getting sick, that's not really going to do it if you're
Okay.
thinking that, okay, well, I'm going to use this as a treatment, right?
Okay. Well, we're at half, and what we'll do is
Sure.
I'll go ahead and run that the sponsor, which is you, And then we'll come back, and I know part two, is supposed to kind of be about energy, but I think that this is an important topic, and maybe we can kind of relate them all together in a bit, in some way.
We can just take a
But
couple minutes.
yeah. All right. Well, great. Let's go ahead and run the sponsor, and then we'll be right back. Have you been suffering from chronic pain, disease, or sleep disorders? Did you know that 75 to 90% of disease is caused by inflammation in the body? The sad truth is, most doctors just treat symptoms rather than finding and fixing root causes of inflammation. If you want to fix your health problems, then finding and fixing the cause of the inflammation is a must. It's time to demand this for your health care and start living life to its fullest again. Book a discovery appointment with the Functional Health Team founder, Dr. Flory, to get your answers ASAP at www.functionalhealthteam.com. All right, and we are back.
Yeah, we don't want to disappoint or or upset the sponsor.
I know, we gotta run it, because otherwise our sponsors get upset.
That's right.
All right. I like to make sure that we're doing the show right. All right.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we were just talking. So part two, we said, is going to be about kind of energy, stress, and health, and a lot of those factors. But we were just getting into kind of some of the proactive things that you can do if you're starting to suffer some symptoms, or to protect yourself, or at least improve your immune system, to give yourself the best chance with, like, COVID, coronavirus, and those symptoms. So we were just talking a little bit about vitamin D and how it's really important before you start getting symptoms. It's not necessarily going to treat it once you have it, but it helps to be protective for your body to prevent the severity of symptoms. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, okay. Absolutely. It's vitamin D is actually a hormone, right?
Okay.
And so it's going to do everything a hormone does in terms of promote proper function and balance, very much to our immune system, right? The reason why we say it's not going to be an effective, I'm going to take it now and treat my, developing COVID right now, is because even the best form of supplemental vitamin D we can take, which is a liquid D3, that's going to take about approximately, and this varies a little bit person to person, but it's going to take about a week to turn into the human active form, right?
Wow.
So Will it help? It will, right? But you're going to be waiting a little while for it to really kind of do its thing. And then that also depends, when you started taking it, was your levels at a 30, or was it with some of the clients that I see, was it a 3? Yeah, I've got a lot greater climb to that 50, 60 range, right? Mm-hmm. Where it's going to be very supportive of proper immune system function that we need. So that's the problem with using it as a treatment. It's got to be a little bit more proactive than that. Now, there are certainly other things that we know can be used that are a bit quicker. Zinc's tossed around a lot. It's very true. Zinc has antiviral capacity capabilities, so it's a good one that's a little bit more quick acting. It can help out. But then a lot of the healthy components of fruits and vegetables, right? Those are very, very good for us too. And these are really just touching upon some of the things that are vitamins and minerals and that sort of a thing. I think it should be mentioned that we didn't go into this as blind as a lot of people thought, right? I mean, we went through a SARS coronavirus, in the past, not quite 10 years ago. And I actually had that one. And at that time, because it was such a new human affliction, there was a lot of research done on natural compounds that could be used in the treatment of it. And you got to understand that the reason why is because, hey, where do they get their ideas for new drugs, things that they can patent? They can't patent the natural herbs, right? The medicinal constituents that comes from plants, but they can patent lookalikes, right? And so, the reason they did the research back then and identified herbal medicinal constituents was exactly for that reason.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. So, if there's a few things that, like, what are some things, you know, herbally that people might be able, because it's sometimes hard to get a hold of. I mean, I know that there's talk of, some ivermectin helping if you take it early on. I think that was very popular on the like the Joe Rogan show. Dr. Peter McCullough talked about that, talked about studies that support that. I mean, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not giving medical advice necessarily. I'm just saying that there are studies out there that support it. But so I know that's part of it, but you were saying too that there are potentially some herbs out there, and some other things that people can consume or take that might help to decrease viral replication and stuff like that. Is that accurate?
Yeah. So you're exactly right. I mean,
Okay,
you may not be a doctor. I am, but there are still some ethical kind of boundaries that I do keep.
of
We
course,
don't
of course.
really sometimes feel it's right to just, well, most mechanics don't feel ethically, okay with, just giving people a pattern instruction, say, hey, go change out your engine, right? Put a new
Right,
engine in.
right.
So we'll talk about the existence of them. There's going to be a limit as to what I will name, though, okay, in specifics. But you're exactly right. There are,
Hmm.
I've used both with myself throughout this whole entire 2 years practically now, as well as with like lots and lots, hundreds, maybe thousands of clients so far that have referred and shared uh, shared the existence of these things. But we've got both. We've got both herbal constituents that can be used to block the docking, okay, of the virus to the spike protein via this ACE2 receptor. Okay, so you can
Okay,
block the connection of the virus to our cells. And
okay. So
again,
that spiky, that spiky protein. You're saying that there are some ways to decrease the likelihood of it actually like docking onto your cells.
that's correct. That
Okay.
is
All
correct.
right.
And again, these are things that vaccines and some of the things we're patterned off of. Okay,
Okay.
so these
All
were in
right.
existence prior, and still are. And now we've got within the next, I think I heard March, early March, hopefully early March is when Merck, Pfizer have these new drugs coming out, and they're 3CL protease inhibitors, which basically means they're scissors. Okay, okay.
Okay.
Because the way a virus works is once it is able to dock and then it injects its genetic material into the cell, it'll replicate using our cellular DNA replication machinery. And it first creates a big, long strand of protein or a big piece of paper, which has to be cut up by the scissors, right? And then
Hmm.
those little pieces of paper then can be packaged into new viruses. And that's how it spreads. That's how it spreads through our body from cell to cell. Well,
When you say
there
paper, that's figurative, right? It's not real paper.
that's correct. Yeah.
Okay, just clarifying.
but but so these scissors that have been developed by Pfizer and Merck, they were developed off of herbal medicinal constituents, right? And
Hmm.
there's even some of these medicinal constituents that serve both purposes. They can not only block, but they can also stop the big piece of paper from being cut up and create new viruses. So there's some really very potent ways to disrupt this virus's um, infection and replication methods, and
Hmm.
therefore can be used by us. So
Wow. Wow. Okay. Well, that's great. So I guess if there's some, people are looking for more information and wanting to know kind of their specific situation, like should they like reach out to you directly on how to what
yeah, this
herbs
is
and whatnot
definitely
might be
something that
good
we
for
do one
them
on
specific?
one because there
Yeah.
are, everybody's health situation is different. And so there are
Hmm.
considerations that need to be made. That's kind of like, again, why we don't just hand the keys over and say, go ahead and drive.
Right. Right. Okay. Okay. And what's your website again?
Functionalhealthteam.com is where you can
Okay.
find me.
All right. A good place to find you. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and shift. I know we've got a little bit less time, but I did want to shift and talking about energy levels because it's something very, very common in speaking with business owners. The especially like they hit that wall around like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, or they wake up and they're not feeling fully rested, or it's just that whenever they're just going through the day, just sometimes those energy levels can, they're popping sugary energy drinks, and they're pounding a lot of caffeine and all that. So I know that I kind of have my ups and downs with my relation to caffeine. So I know that this is something that affects a lot of people. So when it comes to energy, like, what are some of the foundations to keeping your energy up throughout the day?
Absolutely. So when this topic comes up, I like to kind of split some of the conversation into a couple types of energy, and
Yeah.
I talk about brain power, right, and our
All right.
brain feeling energetic and vital, and then
Yeah.
our actual, say, physical energy. What you talk about when you say, physical fatigue in the afternoon, or other, maybe in the morning even.
Mhm.
So I like to kind of split those up and address them somewhat differently. But again, they both can be brought back to this conversation of nutrition, as food is medicine. And if you understand just a few key points about nutrients, right? About our
Okay.
body's relationship with nutrients and
Okay.
this normal rhythm, okay, throughout the day, then it can go a long way in terms of being able to level these things out for ourselves.
Okay. Okay. So you're saying that nutrients are key for being able to level out our energy levels. So what is it specifically about, like, nutrients that we need to be mindful of?
Sure. Well, the first thing I usually will discuss is because so many of us have to use our brains, right, as entrepreneurs. And so that brain health and brain function and energy is very important. And what we want to understand is that our brain's preferred nutrient source is actually the healthy fats
Mm.
from our diet. And so, really, the most important thing that we can be eating in the morning, the first fuel putting in our body, are healthy fats. Okay, so
Okay.
our organic grass-fed butter, and the reason that is because cows fed healthy grass um, actually have a higher healthy fat component, right? To the products that they put out. It's not some weird hippy dippy thing. There's actually a different nutritional value to that butter as compared to other things. But then we also have
Mm.
avocados, some of our oils, right? Healthy oils that can be used, and those can provide us with healthy fats. Another good one is certain nuts and seeds. I would tend to stay towards the tree nuts or something like sunflower seeds
Mm.
rather than peanuts.
What about
Peanuts have
cashews? I
some of
love
those
cashews.
components to it, but they can also be kind of peanuts tend to also carry a lot of fungus in them, right? So that can be where
Oh.
there's an issue there.
Yeah. Well, what about cashews? Because I love cashews and almonds. Those are those are
I think those are both pretty good choices, but I
good.
always do
All right.
suggest a variety
All
because
right. All right.
different nuts, things like Brazil nuts, right, have very high levels of, say, selenium, right? Whereas there's going to be a lot less of that in cashews. All nuts
Mm.
are not, created equal in that respect. So I think a variety is really great.
Awesome. Awesome. So so we've got the nutritional aspects, and we're kind of going back maybe to we were talking a little bit about circadian rhythms and whatnot, in the first half. But as it relates to energy, like, with those energy crashes, kind of like in the afternoon that a lot of people have, is there a way to avoid that, or people just take a nap? Just work it in, go take a nap, and then get back to it. 30 minutes later, like, do that whole power nap thing. What do you think?
Well, so first off, let's just touch on power naps because if you're using power naps to make up for lost sleep, research has shown for quite a while now that doesn't work. Right?
Mm.
We do not get the same benefit from a quick nap as we would as if we were getting that as part of full sleep. Now, if you are getting full sleep, but you need a power nap, then I'm okay with that. But then let's look at the root of your question here, which is where's some of the need for some of that come from, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of a two-part conversation. It's what creates the situation where we might need that nap, and then what's the kind of functional issue going on, why we're getting tired about 2, 3 o'clock, 3:30 in the afternoon, maybe daily or at least frequently. So
what if we just move to a region that has siestas? Could we just would that be?
I'm all for that. I am all for that. Let's hey, I can leave next Tuesday if you can.
All right, let me see what I can do. Get my arrangements together.
we can do the podcast from Espanol.
Oh yeah. All we need is an internet connection. It doesn't really matter where we're at.
So this does stem back kind of to our breakfast question again, right? If we're not eating our healthy fats and say proteins in the morning heavily, and we're eating the more typical, what's a quick breakfast for the
sugar O's,
fast-paced
I think.
person?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I go back and forth, with my wife about like those sugary cereals. It's like, well, the kids love them. I'm like, yeah, but they're just terrible. They're just, sure, they're fortified, I guess, with vitamins and minerals, but so much sugar. That's pretty common. Sugary, like, I think some of those like sugary nutrition bars or whatever, but they still got a ton of like sugar in them.
Yeah.
Even the sugary drinks that we get from like Starbucks and all, there's just so much like just sugary,
Right.
stuff. So I see a lot of that. Where
Right.
people are trying to consume like the fake sugars,
Right.
because like, oh, well, I'm going to be sugar free. Okay. But is that really necessarily better?
Well,
So,
and the only reason they have to fortify them is because they've removed all the nutrition from them in the first place, right?
right.
And
Yeah.
when they fortify, they have to fortify for shelf life. And so a lot of times what the form of vitamins that they're putting in there aren't even the human physiologic useful forms, right? Like let's say
Really?
B12, for instance, something fortified with B12, you can count on that it's probably going to be cobalamin. And our body has to actually take that through multiple biochemical steps just to convert it. And this is an energy consuming process. So we have to spend energy to make useful a fortified vitamin that was removed originally from the food source.
Oh man. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Let alone like the sugar that you mentioned and where sugars are hidden. There's some great. I'll have to post it here on my website if people would like to kind of review it. But there's some great videos and whatnot that just show how deeply sugars are hidden. And so, when somebody grabs some OJ and a bagel, right, in the morning, they're literally eating like pure simple carbs. Okay. And what's going to happen is that they're going to, let alone the sugary breakfast cereals that you mentioned, which are even worse, they're going to spike the blood sugar, what we call the glycemic index. And the more actual simple carbs and sugar that's in there, not only the quicker will it spike up, but the quicker it's going to fall. And when it falls, we go hypoglycemic, okay? And it triggers our fight or flight stress response, okay? So
really,
the kids are being stressed out by the food, okay, that they're eating. And let alone here in a minute, when we get to the second part, we'll kind of explain how that sets up the second part of the problem. But when we have these crashes, then we're going to have decreases of energy, right? We're going to have increased anxiety, all of the hypoglycemic types of symptoms, okay? Such as, a propensity for sweating, fatigue, mentioned anxiety or being moody, irritated, having a short fuse, this carb cravings or sweet tooth that people say, oh, I just naturally crave these. No, you really don't. Not if your body's metabolism was healthy. Getting heart palpitations, poor focus or confusion. And the fact that when you notice that you can relieve these symptoms by generally by eating more foods, loaded with simple carbs. And you think that that's leveling you out. It's really just feeding this second level problem, which is an actual shift in your metabolism. Okay. And so that's kind of the second topic that is worthwhile speaking of when it comes to the daily, say, afternoon fatigue. Okay. And then things like that. Because these sugar crashes, that can happen anytime during the day, right? That happens anytime that the blood sugar has spiked and then crashes back down. That could be 10 o'clock in the morning, possibly.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So then how does that then lead into, because we've only got like maybe a few minutes left, but you're saying, so that leads into the afternoon crashes question as well, metabolism question. Okay.
Right.
Well, we might have to come on and just have like a whole like reboot your metabolism talk again here sometime soon too. So let's just kind of quickly wrap up for today because we've only got a few minutes left. So first of all, you're just going to kind of succinctly, what are some steps that people need to do to proactively protect their health and maximize their health to protect themselves from any sort of virus or infection or anything like that? Like what are some initial steps regarding part one? You said sleep.
Oh, sure. Well, start taking vitamin D now, and take the forms that you're going to be able to utilize the most. Probably one of the craziest things I see with people taking vitamin D is they're taking capsules that have maybe 100 to 500 IU. The human adult needs 4,000 IU every single day, right? So unless you're taking 10 to 20 capsules, you're not even taking the amount that you're going to use in that day, right? So you need to take higher doses of it. And I take the liquids, okay, because these liquids you absorb under the tongue or between the gums, and you bypass what is generally the one reason why people don't absorb their nutrition properly, which is gut inflammation. Okay, it's a key of the cause-based medicine model. One of the keys, because the majority of the population has some form of gut inflammation, depending whatever it's related to. That's that's kind of the X factor there. But so if you're swallowing these capsules and your digestion or absorption is impaired, then you're not going to get it, even if you are taking 15 to 20 of these pills, right?
Wow. So
get yourself a good liquid absorbable vitamin D, and especially at these times, especially where we have a number of rainy, overcast days, be taking in excess of 4,000 IU daily for most people. It's best to be guided by an actual blood test where you know exactly what your vitamin D levels are. And honestly, that's probably the one key biggest thing that I could say in terms of building that immune system now and protecting yourself.
Okay. In regards to specifically like the pandemic and whatnot, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Because they show that level of 50 is where it's protective, right?
Good. Well, then we also hit upon, just in general, sleep, nutrition. If your sleep cycles are off, I think we talked about making sure that you get maybe tested for some of these infections that don't always come up, and just making sure that overall, you're keeping that immune system strong. And then on the second side, we talked about energy and keeping your energy up and what you need to do to maybe the right nutrition and in consideration of the sugars and the carbs and trying to avoid those sugary, unsafe, overcaffeinated drinks and fake vitamins coming from like the fortified stuff.
Start the day out with proteins and healthy fats. Okay.
Perfect.
Cut out the carbs early, and then you add in some carbohydrate servings at lunch and then a little bit more at dinner. And that's a perfect thing to support your hormone rhythm, the circadian rhythm we talked about.
Perfect. Well, thank you. And we'll, of course, post Dr. Flory's website again. It's functionalhealthteam.com, correct?
That's correct.
Awesome. Functionalhealthteam.com if you want to know more. And that's a wrap for today. Thanks.
Thank you for being with us today. But now is the time to put what we talked about into practice. Remember, your family, employees, and community are depending on you to rise up and win. The great news is you're not alone. You're part of a resurgence of entrepreneurs who are ready to take their business, life, and impact to the next level, and we're going to do it together. This show is powered by Time for Success, where we help business owners every day who want more freedom and wealth while building a legacy of positive impact. Please follow Time for Success on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube for more helpful strategies and tools for creating the business and life of your dreams.